I'm Diala Hillberg, and you're listening to the Caretakers Journey podcast.
Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Carole Leatham, and today we are going to dive into a meaningful conversation, a meaningful caretakers conversation with a busy mom, my friend Diala. Now, this woman is amazing, and over the course of the next few minutes as we chat, you're going to find out more about her. But what I want you to know right off the top is that she's the mother of 3 children. They're adorable. She's a wife, an educator, and she describes herself in this way. She's a tapestry woven with threads of caring for these 3 sweet children that she's raising, one of whom is special needs. And this adds a unique dynamic and complexity to their family. So I want to welcome you to the show, Diala. I'm so happy you're here.
Yes, thank you so much.
How are you today? Thank you. So how's your day going so far?
Yeah, there's so much that has already happened in my day, and it's only 10 o'clock. So it's going well.
It's going well.
Yeah.
Well, let's chat for a few minutes about your 3 kids. I love your kids. They, every time I see them, they're adorable. And I've just had this front row seat of your life for the last few years. So let's just talk for a few minutes about your kids. Tell me about them, their ages, and then especially about this special little gift that God gave you a few years ago.
Yeah, so I have 3 kids. Vaughn, who is turning 9. Nora, who is 7, but acts like she's 17. It's ridiculous. And Luca, who is 4. And they are such a blessing. I don't want to sound cheesy, but they really are. They are so sweet and so. I was watching this morning at 5 o'clock when my day started. That early. My son Luca and my son Vaughn, they share a room, and so I hear their monitor at 5 o'clock this morning, and I just see Luca climbing into bed with Vaughn. And Vaughn, it was the sweetest thing. This is what got me. Vaughn, the older one, he moved himself to the outside of the bed so Luca can go on the inside so he doesn't fall off. And I'm just, I don't know, sometimes we get so overwhelmed and exhausted and just so tired, but then little moments like this, and you're like, we're doing something right here. Something is clicking with these kids, and it's just, it really is so sweet to see them interact together like that.
I love that picture. So let's dive into a minute about Luca. You said Luca's how old?
He's 4.
He's 4. So tell us about the challenges that came with Luca's birth and how that unfolded in your life, because I know some of our listeners do have special needs kids, and they're probably wondering which one of the 3, and it's Luca. So and I love that Vaughn and Nora are so loving and caring for him. So tell us about Luca, and then about how you see Vaughn and Nora and your family interacting with him.
So Luca was born a little bit early. I mean, I'll try to keep it as short as possible. So he was born just a few weeks early, and everything was totally fine. He ended up needing to stay in the NICU for 15 days. And we honestly didn't know what was going on at the time. His blood sugar was low, things were going on. And even after the NICU, there were just some delays, and we didn't find out. We knew things were going on. He ended up having seizures at 10 months. And so we were trying to figure out what the cause was and what was going on. It honestly wasn't until right before he turned 3. We did some genetic testing, and he has a genetic syndrome called DYRK, DYRK1A. And with that, it's a huge umbrella. Before I describe it, actually, so it's so rare that only 780 in the world currently, as of today, have this genetic syndrome. And so it is extremely rare. So God thinks very highly of us because he thinks that we can do this. And as I was praying last night, I mean, I am like, you must think I'm amazing because I don't see how you thought I could do this. I mean, there's just so many things that fall under that it is, there's autism, there's intellectual disability, speech delays, the seizures, dietary issues, it's a huge list of of needs. And honestly, it's overwhelming. It's exhausting. We honest one day at a time is how we deal with it. One day it's amazing and he does, really well. Other days it's really hard and we have to, take a step back and really reevaluate all the things we're doing and if we need to do more. And it's just, it's challenging every single day. But after he was diagnosed at the end of 2022, it was May. It took me until May to really fully grasp like what is happening and what we're actually dealing with. And I'll be honest, like when we first got married and thought about having kids, we'll be married 15 years in June this year, which is wild to think about. Wow. I know.
I remember I met you the first time in your car with Mathen when you were engaged and not even married yet. How could it have been that long?
It's been a while. It's crazy to think about. But even then, I remember thinking, before we even had kids, asking God specifically to make, I don't know how to say this in a positive way, but I remember asking, like, please don't put this challenge in my life with kids. Like, I remember specifically thinking, because I was an educator, I see kids all the time who have special needs, and I remember thinking, like, this is not something that no parent ever really wants that, but I remember specifically praying like this, please keep them healthy, keep them strong, keep them, whatever, all the things. But also I remember specifically saying, like, this is just not something that I can handle. So please, God, like, spare me this challenge. And it's funny because I got the most challenging challenge of my life with all the things that he needs. And it's crazy because, I don't know, God's doing something and I don't know it yet. It took me about 5 months to fully feel that peace. And I know people talk about this all the time, that peace that surpasses all understanding.
Right.
We read that, we hear it, and, God's peace, or, peace when you're in God's will and things like that. But I felt it, and it's real, and it's so liberating. It really is. And it didn't happen immediately. And I'm not going to lie and say, like, okay, yeah, I fully trust God. I know that I do. But I'm not going to lie and say, like, it happened instantly, because it didn't. It took me about 5.5 months to fully feel that. And it's still a challenge, though, every single day.
I really understand what you're saying, because I don't think any of us would have chosen the caregiver journey. I mean, I was having a conversation with my husband this morning, and it wasn't really about anything other than just the day and what he's already done and what am I doing. But there's moments in every day where I see how my life would have been different. Did we not have this challenge? Do we not have this challenge? And now he's moved into mental and physical issues. He's had 3 surgeries in the last 6 months. And there's just an exhaustion and this mental thing that goes on in your mind. And I mean, I think for me, one of the reasons I really wanted to talk to you is because I knew you'd be real. I knew you would be real. And it's really, really important for me in these conversations, because I call them meaningful conversations for a reason. We have to be real about the stress. And in our world of social media and the perfect picture of what life is supposed to be, it would be really easy to paint this perfect picture of hardship. And I remember I had the pleasure of sitting at the bar chatting with you the night you went into labor with Luca.
I remember.
And we did. We didn't know you were in labor. We thought you were, we didn't know. And then the next morning I wake up and this beautiful little boy is here. And I've seen pictures of him in the hallway at our church. And I've watched how my daughter, who's the children's worship, who does the children's ministry at our church, and your husband is the worship pastor. So I get to sit here and watch how you're raising Luca. And something struck me, because when you just said something, I want to bring out that this is really rare. So God gave you something really special to deal with. Did you say about 700 people in the entire world?
The world, 780 right now. Yeah. When he was first diagnosed, it was only 500.
Wow.
It's great. There's more awareness, but it's in the world, 780.
So So there's probably a lot of people walking around who have children that have this, or people who have this issue, this diagnosis, that aren't even aware of it yet.
Yeah.
So how did you find these 780 people?
Facebook.
Good old social media.
Facebook. It's crazy because, it really is just a great way to connect with everybody. But Facebook, there isn't a lot of research. Even our neurologists and our doctors, they really couldn't help us. And when we were told by the neurologist all the results, he just very plainly and coldly told us that, and that about the syndrome, and basically just listed the symptoms of what it would have, but there was no action plan after that. And so we went straight to Google, obviously. We were like, okay, what is this? And something is going on, but having a label just makes it so much more real.
Yeah.
And as an educator, I don't necessarily, labels are, they're there, we use them, but that's not the only thing that makes a child who they are. And so, but it did make it a lot just really real for us.
Yeah.
But Facebook, we just Googled Durka and all these people came up, and the community is growing. We've made some really good friends, through social media, which has been great, of parents who, have kids who have this, some who have adopted kids who have this, which is, incredible too. Twins, there are some twins out there. I think the oldest who has this is, I think they're in their 40s, and they're thriving. She's married and living an amazing life. So it's really encouraging to see, just the spectrum of what this all entails, because, there's not enough information really about it yet. And so just seeing the people who are living it out and what they're experiencing is encouraging for us, because we really don't know what his future is going to look like yet.
That's the beautiful thing about community. Yeah. And I started the Caretakers Journey community because I was looking for the community of people who are caretaking. And I love how the lines are blurred as to what that looks like based on what we're dealing with. And every single day is different when you're dealing with this. So let's talk for a second about your role as a wife. I love how you describe it as being interlaced with love, partnership, and the everyday dance of marital life. I can imagine that someday that's a slow dance, someday that's a fast dance, someday that's a dance that really doesn't have any normal beat to it. But how do you and Mathen co-parent and your children, especially Luca? But then how do you dance through life each day? Because you're both busy, and we're going to talk about your job in a minute, but you're both so busy. How do you dance through the day?
One step at a time. It really is. It's insane around here. It really is. I'm a really organized person, and I am a lot more tense, if you will, than Mathen is. My husband is like the most relaxed person in the entire world. The world could be falling apart and crashing, and he's just, oh, it's all right, whatever. And I'm like freaking out. So we're a really good balance for one another.
I like that.
Yeah, because he calms me down, but I also hype him up a little bit, because there needs to be some kind of urgency sometimes, but we take it one day at a time. Every single night we go through the calendar, the things that we need to do. Communication is great. And the days that we're not syncing, and the days we're kind of, yelling at each other, I'm yelling, he's just listening, because he's just he's so calm and just wonderful. But whenever we're not communicating well, those are the days that we are just out of sync. It really is, it's that simple. There are really hard days with Luca, and during those days, we try really hard to give each other breaks. This happened yesterday. I was done. Luca, because he's nonverbal, he'll pull and tug, and we're working on a few things with him with that. And he'll pull me to show me what things he needs, but I'm in the middle of making dinner for everybody or doing something. And, those moments like that he's very aware of, that Mathen is very aware of. And he locked me in our room yesterday. Sit for a second, I'll get him whatever he needs, just take 10 minutes, whatever you need. And so just being aware of each other's needs is so important, especially when we're caring for 3 kids. Really is a lot. So not to make that seem insignificant. 3 kids, but also one who's getting older, not able to communicate as well as he needs. And those things really do take a toll. But yeah, it's just one day at a time, and lots of talking on my end. I feel like he's really good at listening, but lots of communication for sure.
I love that picture of him locking you in your room, because I think that there are some times when we have to have those people in our lives who say to us, wait a minute, you have to take a break. You have to step out. And, and I have a few of those in my life who they don't live here and they don't live with me, but they can hear it in my voice when we're chatting. They can hear it in the text messages or the lack thereof. I've said on the show several times that I have a friend who, if she doesn't hear from me for 2 or 3 days, will call me and go, okay, I know something's wrong because, where are you? Normally you're like always chatty and I'm working and I'm trying to shut you up and you're not, and I haven't heard from you. And I think it's important to understand the break. Number one, that he would see that. And number two, that you would listen.
Yeah.
And go in. And
it's really hard too, though. It really is. Because I want to do all the things and I want to handle it all. But honestly, it's recent that I've been actually listening and taking that time.
Which I love that. And so we're going to kind of move into the idea of, professionally, you are a teacher and a college professor. So you are teaching young minds and you're teaching younger minds. And so every day has to look different for you. Then you have your younger minds at home that you're also working with. So how do you manage those shifting role between teaching grade schoolers, parenting your children, especially Luca, the special needs, and then the next moment you're with college students? So how do you shift between those different, because I'm sure it's different for each age group.
Oh, yeah. It's really hard. It's not easy. I don't know how much longer I can sustain it all, honestly. This year has been one of those years that, after being in education in the classroom in public school with, elementary kids, this is the first year that I've actually ventured out and done a few different things. And honestly, it's all because of, what's going on with Luca and me trying to really find a good balance between being home and working. I got my 2 master's degrees in education, and, my plan before we found out about Luca was to, move up, be a principal or, do something in administration. Yeah. And this year has been one of the most challenging years. I'm 34, but I feel like I'm going through like some kind of crisis right now because like reevaluating everything. I feel like I'm, 18 trying to figure out my next step in life, but I have all these responsibilities that are coming with me. It's really hard to manage it all. It really is. I have a pretty unique schedule where I can do, one role each day. The weekends are full of a lot of planning and adjusting. And one thing I didn't put on my thing is I also started a tutoring business too. So I'm also tutoring some days too. Yeah. And so it really is. It is a lot. And so what I'm trying to figure out, honestly, is what is going to be the best path. And I'm using this year as kind of like the test year to figure out, which one do I really want to continue with. And I am doing a lot this year, but I think it's one of those years where it's going to help me figure out the path that I want to take. But I will say it's hard, but college kids are honestly just really big 4th graders, if any of them but they really are. They're really sweet. And the cool thing about college is, this is my first full year as an adjunct. And so they want to be there, which makes it a little bit, different than forcing, a 10-year-old to be in class and do all the things they need to do. But most of the kids I have, and I call them kids, most of the young adults in my classes they want to be there. And so there's a little bit of a difference there because, they're excited to be there. They want to learn, and all of them are interested in education, which is really, that's my passion. So that part of it really is fun to interact with them.
Well, I think it's interesting because this has been a year of change for me as well. Mm-hmm. And I think that what I would say is it's a year of accepting my limitations.
Yeah.
And really accepting, almost, instead of calling them failures, just accepting the limitations. But there are some things that I have not done, I've not been able to do well. And so for me, at my stage of life, I had to say, okay, it's time for me to go back on my Social Security, to cut mm-hmm. down, because I'm one of those who would work. Yeah. And so at the beginning of this year, I retired from everything, started back on my Social Security, and really got to a point of, I don't know what's next. And mm-hmm. I felt kind of stuck. And then God began to show me how everything that I had walked through over here, mm-hmm. in much the same way as what I'm watching you do, everything I'd walked through over here was preparing for what I hadn't seen yet. It was like I was in a hallway and the door hadn't been opened yet. Yep. And so God was asking me for a few months to kind of be faithful in the hallway. Mm-hmm. And then when he opened the door, mm-hmm. I had to be willing to walk through it. And when I first started thinking and dreaming about the Caretakers Journey Ministry, you and I remember we were having a conversation, and I didn't even really know what that was going to look like yet. Mm-hmm. And before I knew it, the podcast was kind of the first jumping off point for it, because I found all of these people in my life who are caretakers or have a connection to a caretaker. And I love how we can support and encourage and pray for each other. Mm-hmm. Yep. Because as I watch you in your journey, you're also watching me in my journey. Mm-hmm. And then there are days where I feel like, like this morning, I got a text from somebody. Hey, I'm thinking about you today. Mm-hmm. And I was like, they have no idea the pressure that I was feeling mm-hmm. at that particular moment. Yeah. And so I think being aware and just being willing to say what needs to change is huge. Yeah. Yeah. And then taking the time to make a change. Mm-hmm. What I'm hearing you say is you're taking a year and doing a lot of evaluation. Mm-hmm. And then you're trying some new things and figuring out how that's all going to fit with the puzzle of what your life looks like.
Yeah.
And I think that leads kind of into the last time we were together, we were having a conversation about this yearning for more, this mm-hmm. deeper, and you must be careful what you yearn for. Yeah. Because you don't know how God is preparing you. Yeah. And I remember we were talking about this deeper sense of self, mm-hmm. a stronger connection to God, because both of us are huge faith. Mm-hmm. We live our life with faith, and we understand that God has to be the foundation for everything we do. Yeah. And really, I think both of us would say a clearer vision or a path, mm-hmm. Very clear vision of that path that God has for us. Yeah. And we both have that challenge of caretaking in moving forward. And I love that I have heard you use words like doubts, exhaustion, feelings of loss. There's a grief that happens. There's a real grief. And I think it's important that as we're seeking balance, that we understand that part of what you and I are both going through in our journey mm-hmm. is this grief, this loss of what could have been, this loss of what it looks like. And I love your honesty that it took you 5 months to really wrap your mind and your brain and your emotions around Luca. And how much we love him and you love him, but the challenges that come and are going to continue to come with him. Yeah. And so how do you, I know that you have started this incredible new ministry that is mm-hmm. very, very new called Balancing Grace. And we've talked a little bit about it because you have started to understand that foundation of God, and balance is where it is. So talk to us for a few minutes about what Balancing Grace looks like. Tell us what your mission is and why you're moving in this direction.
It kind of goes back to what you said, that community of, mm-hmm. either whatever it is, honestly, either caretakers. For me, Balance and Grace is geared towards moms and um, wives, but Balance and Grace is honestly, it's just I want it to be a community of women who, whatever they're going through, for me, I'm a wife of a pastor. That comes with its own challenges. I am a daughter of a pastor. That's its own challenges or things that have impacted my life and my decisions. I am a mother. I'm a professional. I'm an educator. I have so many roles that I am doing throughout the day, and we begin to lose ourselves in those roles. And it can get lonely when you are just going through the motions, and we lose ourselves, especially as women, because there are so many needs, and we as women, we put on, sometimes I feel like we like you said, I want to keep going and I want to do the things and do all the work, but we really have to slow down and really take a moment for ourselves sometimes. And for me, honestly, it was finding out about Luca, really reevaluating my entire professional career. I mean, I thought I was going in a very different direction, in 2020.
Me and you both.
And there's a huge loss with that. There really is. I've gotten to the point where I think I'm okay with it. Some days I get really sad, thinking that, I could have been doing so many other things. But Mathan, actually, he's the one who said, what is our most important role? Like, what are we here for? And honestly, it's discipling our children. And that really got me. And if I'm not a principal one day, I'm going to be okay with that, because my kids love Jesus. And there's a friend of mine who she has a daughter who has some needs, and she always says, but does she love Jesus? And she made me a huge sign, and it's in Luca's room, and it's, but does he love Jesus? Like, that's it. At the end of the day, that's the most important thing. And so Balance and Grace, honestly, it's just for the woman who is losing herself in all the roles that we have, whether that's society's expectations that have put on us or we've put on ourselves. And a lot of it we put on ourselves because we want to do all the things, and we're capable. But at some point, we really have to take that step back and realize that, there are things that need to be a priority and other things that really need to take a step back. And honestly, it was a conversation that you and I had at Starbucks. You're like, you're doing too much. And
I did say that, didn't I?
You're doing way too much. And I am, honestly, I am, but it's because I think that I can. But at some point, when you're doing too much, you're not doing anything well. Yeah. And for me, it was really eye-opening, and kind of what got me thinking a lot more of what I need to cut out and what I need to focus on, and Balance and Grace.
Isn't it funny? And I think we'll wrap up our conversation with this. Our conversation, I remember that conversation when I said that. And I love that you let me speak truth into you. A few months after that conversation, somebody said to me the exact opposite. You're hiding. You're isolating. You're not using the God-given talents that God has given you. You have decided that somehow the mental and physical challenges that your husband has, and forcing him to retire because he was a pastor, you are using that as an excuse to sit on the other side of the pew and not serve and not do anything. And so you need to she literally said to me, you need to get your butt up off the pew, and you need to figure out what God has for you. Yeah. And some days that's a challenge. Some days that's hard. And yet last week I got to go and speak to a group of women about what it looks like to love Jesus and how God uses all of these things. And so I've created a hashtag in my life called #GoRogue, which is realize our God uses everything. And it's actually the title of the book that I'm working on. And I think that as we as we kind of slow down, I think that God is showing us, some of us need to slow down. Some of us need to pick it up. And I think that there's going to be different seasons in our lives where that's going to be the case. And sometimes we can handle stuff for a period of time, and then we have to back off. And I think it's important for us to not, and maybe this would be the thing that we leave the listeners with. I think it's important for us to realize that we are not defined by what we do. We are defined by our relationship in Him. Absolutely. And what we do is so important because it has to come from that it has to be seated in that relationship with Him. So talk to me just for a minute as we close about the importance of of everything we do being balanced in that relationship with the Lord.
I mean, if He was not my foundation, I would be completely I mean, growing up, that was something that I came to faith at a really young age, but I feel like in the last just few months that my faith has only gotten stronger because of, and I mean, it is because there's so many things that I have to rely on Him for, and I'm okay with that. Now I'm okay with that, but it took a while. But I couldn't get through my day. I'm constantly throughout my day, simple little prayers like, please help us get through therapy today. Please help us get through speech today. And if that, and He does. I mean, that peace is still in my life. And I am able to feel that throughout our entire day. Even with we're focusing on Luca, but even with my other kids. I mean, if I was not like fully rooted and fully trusting that God has got this, there's no way I can get through my day because there's so many unknowns. And I mean, He's doing this for a reason. I don't know it yet. One thing I heard this week is you can't protect your kids from their testimony. And
say that again.
You can't protect your kids from their testimony. Wow. And it's simple, right? But also like so profound at the same time because it breaks my heart, honestly, because I want to protect them. I want to keep them from hurting, and I want to protect them from life because it's scary and it's ugly. But with God, I mean, He's got this. And the last 2 weeks, my two oldest kids, they told us their decisions that they want to be baptized.
Wow! Oh my gosh, that's amazing!
We're so proud of them. We're so excited. And my oldest, it's funny because my daughter is, she shared it very loudly and clearly with all of us. That's something that they want to do. And my son Vaughn, he's like, yeah, I believe in God, and he lives in my heart, and but I didn't tell anyone about it. Typical. He's just like his dad. But that just goes back to what are we here for, honestly. Like if it wasn't for God perfectly aligning all the things in our lives, my kids, I know that my kids' testimonies are going to be beautiful and perfect and exactly what they need to be because God is in our life, and we do our very best to disciple our 3 kids.
Wow. And I think your phrase, we can't protect our kids from their testimony, really applies to those of us as adults as well. Yeah. Because I know that the things that God is asking me to do now, I wouldn't be able to do had it not been for things that happened when I was a child.
Yeah.
And the things that, the things that we're using and the pains that we're kind of seeing God use now really are part of that testimony that He's building in each and every one of us. Well, Diala, as we close out, I am really big on self-care. And so I always ask at the end of every episode, I ask my guest, what are you going to do in the next 24 hours to take care of you? So Miss Diala, my sweet friend, what are you going to do in the next 24 hours to take care of you?
I'm probably going to have Mathen lock me in the room for 15 minutes, honestly. But I've been doing acupuncture, and that's been fantastic. So I actually have an appointment at 1:00 today to do that, and I'm excited. Okay. No one enjoys being poked with needles in their face, but I'm excited to see what comes from it. So
Oh
that's
my gosh.
filter.
That, you know what, my niece is just finished her schooling and became an acupuncturist, and someday I may have to go to Tucson where she lives and have her poke me with needles, because there's a good therapy. So it's good there. There's a good therapy.
It's not for everyone.
It's not for everyone.
Maybe just a massage would be great, but
I have one of those scheduled for next week. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Diala, and I hope that you, as my listeners, have been blessed by this woman, and I will put her contact information in the show notes. And she is working on her first book, and so which I am encouraging her monthly to keep going on, because it's going to be amazing. And if you would like to know more about my caretaking journey and you're not familiar with me, you can find the link to my book, Are You Ready to Find Joy When Life Gets Messy? It'll be in the show notes as well. And hit follow, because you never want to miss another episode. They drop every Friday morning. And the Caretaker's Journey will be back next week for another meaningful conversation about this journey that we're all on as caretakers. And until then, it's all about him.